Trump has reorganized his staff as he continues to slip in the polls.
Political analysts Wendy, Patrick, and Laura Fink join us this morning to continue the conversation. Ladies, good morning. Always nice to have you. Let's first talk a little bit about these people and if they're the right people for the job. What will this change? Wendy, go ahead and start.
Well, I'll tell you, a shakeup is very good right about now in the Trump campaign. You know, we are looking at a time when, despite having such popularity in the primary and even in the beginning of the general, things are starting to take a turn for the worse. But what did you also see this week? You saw a scripted speech, two of them actually. When Donald Trump is on message, he is going to be connecting with the voters. This shouldn't be a race about temperament versus trust, yet it is. So what can he do on his part? He can decide to listen to the advice of his higher-ups. A shakeup is a good thing because it definitely wasn't working the way it was. And let's see if he can turn it around. There is definitely enough time for him to do so if he's motivated.
Wendy, can you talk a little bit about the hires? So we have Stephen Bannon and Kellyanne Conway. Who are these people, for people who wouldn't know? Are these people that are going to definitely kind of support that campaign? And what are they going to do to change what Trump is?
Well, who they are, they're people that Trump knows and trusts. Obviously, he is very hands-on when it comes to working with the people in his campaign. Remember, in days past, this has been not so much about running against Hillary, but running against the media. So he wants to make sure to surround himself with people whose advice he trusts, who he can take. But whether or not these are going to be marriages of convenience and whether it's going to work, only time's going to tell, because remember, he's already been through quite a few people in and out of his campaign that he just haven't gelled with. You know, one of the things he said is, don't hold your breath for a pivot, because he wouldn't see that as being authentic. And he believes his success up to now has been about being himself. So whether or not these new members of his team attempt to make him be somebody who he's not depends on how long they're going to be with him. That's for sure.
That's very true. Okay, Laura, let's bring you in here. I want your thoughts on the changes, obviously, but also, will the campaign be doing things differently now? Are they going to kind of shift their focus?
I mean, slightly. I think to talk about who these folks are. So the head of Breitbart News, which is sort of the National Enquirer of Republican news, and then you've got a well-respected pollster in Kellyanne Conway. But I think what they're trying to do is to get Trump to behave, which is, ultimately his message isn't going to change. He's not going to pivot, but will he behave well enough so that he even have a fighting chance? But the question is this just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic? Because ultimately, to borrow another metaphor, just to mix my metaphors for a minute, when you have a problem and you make a coaching change like right before the playoffs, it's a very, very late structural change within the campaign, then ultimately if you have a problematic quarterback that won't listen and that's uncoachable, that could be a problem that nobody can fix. So this is the challenge here. I think if I were to play devil's advocate for a minute, I would say that what they're capitalizing on is the fact that a lot of people in the country feel that we are headed in the wrong direction and Hillary's high negatives. But that was the case before under Paul Manafort, and they want to be able to double down on Trump's strategy of a really pugilistic fighting style, big rallies. I mean, essentially these folks are the ones that are going to say, yes, Trump, we can do it your way, but there are a few concessions you have to make. I don't happen to think that it will work, but it's clear something had to be done.
Is it common to change staff along the way?
Let me pick up on Laura's Titanic metaphor.
Yeah, but is it common?
These new members, let's say they are lifeboats. In other words, they are vehicles to which Trump can use to get to shore safely, to save his campaign, to salvage his campaign. How do we know there's hope? 2 speeches this week so far have been scripted on teleprompter. And look what already happened to his ratings. They're up.
Sure.
People are listening to his content, the substance, instead of the gaffes, the verbal gaffes. Tongue in cheek is foot and mouth for Donald Trump. So what he needs to do is not go there, not go off of message. And if this new team is going to make him stick to his script, I definitely think probably even within a couple of days, we're going to see him be able to turn this thing around.
He said on Twitter over the weekend, if, quote, the disgusting and corrupt media covered me honestly and didn't put false meaning into the words I say, I would be beating Hillary by 20%. How much do you girls think?
Wait, is he talking about us? Wait a minute.
Wait a second.
He's talking about you. Yeah, he's talking about you.
But how much do you think the media outlets are really influencing the race when it comes to Trump? I mean, he has social media. He's always on that as well. And then we kind of repeat sometimes what he's putting on Twitter. What do you think?
Well, the media has been his best friend, and now it's his worst enemy because the media is investigating and looking into the statements that he actually makes.
Doing our jobs,
right, doing your actual jobs. And so I really think this is a clarion cry to his supporters, and it pairs very nicely with the election is rigged. Without any evidence of the election being rigged, he simply says it. So this really flares up his base. Now, to speak to how that helps him cross the finish line, right now his bread and butter, as we all know, are white working class voters, which he's winning by larger margins than any other Republican presidential candidate in recent history. However, we of course know where he's losing in virtually every other demographic group. So his strategy, again, is to double down, inflame these tensions, inflame the passion and the anger of that particular segment of the electorate in the hopes that he can do that and depress turnout among the other groups by driving up Hillary's negatives. So this is his strategy. He's doubling down on it. I think the problem is the math there is very, very complicated, and he's going to need an outside force to make that happen. Lifeboat, indeed, he is on, but I don't think I've ever seen a lifeboat take anybody to the White House.
Wendy, we'll let you have the last word here.
Let me take a counterintuitive approach on your question about the media.
Sure.
While it's true, the media can be friend or foe, a lot of it depends on how Donald Trump decides to use the media. Remember that they're going to be there to cover him. It doesn't matter what he says or does. So why not capitalize on that opportunity? I believe he's done that this week with the two speeches that I've mentioned. Why not continue to capitalize on that instead of attacking them for basically, as both you and Laura have pointed out, doing their jobs? There is so much room here to be able to use this, not just a sail into the White House, but beyond, and really recognizing how he can partner with the media. I think we're going to see more of this given the success he's already seen this week, if he can stay on script, which I believe these new campaign additions are going to help him do.
Still waiting.
Both sides here are just playing to their supporters because the big bad media, we're going after Donald Trump, big bad media, and then we're also the big bad media going after Hillary Clinton and her email scandal. We won't let that
That's
die.
right.
So,
I don't think she takes it to the same degree. She's not going to make a national case against the media because ultimately that is only winning with a certain segment of the election.
But the message is the same.
So I think, when you look at I don't think that she's taken that tack, nor would I advise her to. And in fact, I would tell Trump to stop doing it too, because you can only do it so much before you start to look like a whiner. He's going to start having to play the general election game.
Too late.
Oh, we're so horrible, ladies. I don't even know where to go from here. What are we? We're disgusting and corrupt. Okay. Well,
but you make it look good, Raul.
Oh, bless your heart. So do you too. We thank you both, Laura and Wendy.
Thanks, Raul.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you.
We're not that bad.